quadrennial presidential elections. The main contestants, the incumbent President Donald Trump, a Republican, and former Vice President Joe Biden, a Democrat. Paradoxically, the path to the White House is simple yet complex. Complex because in the U.S., the election is not about the simple majority or what we call popular votes, but 538 members of the Electoral College, of which 270 will be enough to determine who occupies what many believe is the most powerful position on the planet. We will be talking to an Emmy Award winner, a professor of journalism in the United States. Also on the program, as the dust continues to settle on the protests of the past fortnight in Nigeria, the nation begins to deal with the debris of socio-economic recovery, infrastructural deficit, and a pandemic which is not going away. I am Fisayo Ogunfuyi. Welcome. One is a 74-year-old seeking re-election. The other is a 77-year-old seeking his own mandate after being the number 2 to President Barack Obama. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., popularly called Joe Biden, is locking horns with Donald Trump, the incumbent president of the United States, for the boarding pass to Air Force One and a 4-year C of O of the White House. Already, almost 100 million votes have been cast pre-election day, which is about 73% of the overall votes cast in the 2016 presidential elections. Timothy Yusuf sent in this preview.
The 2020 United States presidential election is ongoing. It will be the 59th quadrennial presidential election. Voters will select presidential electors who in turn will vote on December 14, 2020 to either elect a new president and vice president or re-elect the incumbents Donald Trump and Mike Pence, respectively. The series of presidential primary elections and caucuses were held from February to August 2020. This nominating process is an indirect election where voters cast ballots selecting a slate of delegates to a political party's nominating convention, who then elect their party's nominees for president and vice president. Considered a referendum on the Trump presidency, the major two-party candidates are Republican incumbent President Donald Trump and Democratic former Vice President Joe Biden. Central issues of the election, according to political analysts, include the impact of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which has left more than 230,000 Americans dead, protests in reaction to the police killing of George Floyd and other African Americans, the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader, and the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, and the future of the Affordable Care Act, with Biden arguing for protecting and expanding the scope of the legislation and Trump pushing for its repeal. Trump secured the Republican nomination without any serious opposition alongside incumbent Vice President Pence. Former Vice President Joe Biden secured the Democratic nomination over his closest rival, Senator Bernie Sanders, in a competitive primary that featured the largest field of presidential candidates for any political party in the modern era of American politics. The winner of the 2020 presidential election is scheduled to be inaugurated on January 20, 2021. If elected, Biden will become the oldest person to serve as president at 78 years old on the day of his inauguration, and the first candidate to defeat an incumbent president in 28 years since Democrat Bill Clinton defeated Republican George H.W. Bush in 1992. In addition, his running mate Harris would become the first woman to serve as vice president. This is the first presidential election in which both major candidates are over 70.
Thank you, Timothy. Now joining us live from Chicago, Illinois, United States of America is multi-Emmy, Associated Press, and Grammy Award winning journalist and professor of journalism, Dr. Giannis Mary Collins. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I understand, of course, that it's just 7 o'clock in the morning in Chicago. I hope you have had time to grab a cup of coffee because it is likely to be a long day for anybody interested in the U.S. presidential elections.
Absolutely. It feels good. I've been waiting for this day. I'm excited. about this day. So I've had some sleep. I had a little bit of tea, and so I'm all ready for today. It's a big, big day.
All right, what's the mood like in your state, for instance, after what looked like a rather fractious campaign between President Trump and Vice President Biden?
Well, the mood and the tone here in Chicago, I have to say, um, to to the surprise of many, the mood is actually the same across this country, which is uncertain. A lot of people have fear. Some people are excited. A lot of people are worried because we have helicopters flying around here in Chicago to make sure that everything stays peaceful. On either side, whatever happens, there could be an outbreak of violence, hostility, because people have been just not happy with how our political system has been working. But we have come out in droves. We have record numbers going, mail-in ballots and going to the polls. So it is one of angst. People are just nervous about what is about to happen. But we're prepared for it. We believe in a free and democratic society, and we believe in the freedom and the rights to vote. So we're all set for it.
All right, what are the key issues that could influence the verdict of Americans today?
Well, the key issues this go around, is the record number of African Americans who are now voting more than the last election. There are more white Americans voting this go round. I think last election, I think the majority of the votes, I think it was like we ended up like at 36%. The majority of the country did not even vote in the last election, and most of the voters were white women. We have doubled that number of white women voting even this election. So we are going to break some numbers, I think. Having Kamala Harris, an African American, being a running mate to former Vice President Joe Biden is a big pull. But again, we have the issue with our president now, Donald Trump, with the handling of the pandemic. We have 800,000 more cases already this morning. And so I think the American people are looking towards a leader who's going to stop the bleeding and stop the deaths of this pandemic. They want to see more women in power. They want to see more leadership when it comes to international relations and type of leadership that's going to bring people together and countries together and nations together. So I think young people, again, are going to make a big difference in this election. They're out in droves, especially African American
Let me quickly come in here. Now, yours is a sophisticated democracy. Can you briefly explain the concept of the Electoral College very quickly?
Absolutely. So in the electoral college, each state gets a certain number of electors, and that's based on the total number of representatives in Congress. And each elector casts one electoral vote following the general election. So in total, depending on how many representatives are in Congress, in total there are 538 electoral votes. The candidate that gets more than half, which is 270, actually wins the election. So 270 is the magic number where everyone's looking for.
All right, everybody's, a mathematician this time, but can you give us when we begin to see the destination of the next occupant, where the next occupant of the White House will come from? Is it likely to be the night or the next morning? When do we begin to see which states are we, when the results come in, will we begin to see exactly where things are likely to be heading?
Oh my God, what a great question. It is a great question because no one knows. Our polls opened at 7 o'clock this morning, our time, which is the beginning of your show. The last polls close, I think, in Alaska at 1 a.m. And so we know nothing will be decided at that time. Even if we think it has been decided, even if it has been predicted with strong probability, based on polls, exiting polls. Here's the issue. Because we have had a record number of mail-in ballots, it may take a week for all of the votes to be counted. And even if they're counted, it doesn't mean that some of the voting in some states won't be contested. So I'm thinking it's going to be about a week. I'm thinking it's going to be about a week for us to really, truly know.
All right, so we've had multiple award-winning journalists and professor of journalism, Dr. Giannis Mary Collins, join us from Chicago. Thank you very much. And probably we'll also try and get through to you when everything is collated. Personally, I can't understand how we can have popular votes, the higher number, and then you go to 270 people decided. I can't get my head around that. But you guys know what you're doing, so of course we'll get you back maybe later in the week to put everything in perspective for us. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you so much. And yes, we don't have the popular vote, which is really interesting. And I want to wish you and all my brothers and sisters in Africa and Abuja, Nigeria, all the best and safety to you all as well. May peace be unto you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, in Nigeria, the smoke from properties destroyed during the protest hijacked it's beginning to clear. The sting to the eyes haven't. The toll, of course, offers a grim reminder for protagonists and antagonists alike that society bears the brunt.
Nigerians, and they came out in their numbers to express their grievances against the Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigerian Police Force. The mission was clear: end the harassment perpetrated by some bad eggs in the squad as alleged by victims. For the first few days, the protest was peaceful and coordinated. So much so, it drew global attention, with advocates of reputable social standing lending their voice and time to the cause. And then, things turned ugly when hoodlums hijacked the protest. The turn of event left many licking their wounds and others paying the ultimate price.
Everything is gone. Everything gone. What was that from? Where? Tell me where. This is days, months, years of sweat, of pain.
This is one of the victims of the End SARS protests gone wrong. She represents the many entrepreneurs whose businesses were violated, with goods looted to the last item. From Lagos to Edo and even Calabar, the narrative was almost same, as the raid was replicated in most states of the Federation. Another critical area that felt the brunt of the ravaging spree were the public-owned properties and facilities.
These are DRT buses, all burned to the ashes.
It makes one wonder why citizens would target amenities meant to better their lives. From the High Court in Lagos to the psychiatric facility in Calabar and even the prison in Edo State, the destruction knew no bounds.
Prisoners, they come out for White House. Prisoners, they come out for White House.
The traditional institutions were not spared, as youths invaded the palace of the Oba of Lagos, cutting away valuables including the symbolic emblem of cultural heritage. As it turns out, those on the looting spree neither appeal to the concept of age, gender, tribe, nor religion. Some parents were even seen looting public and private-owned properties with their children playing the ostrich. It was indeed chaotic, almost a case of going back to a state of nature as described by 17th century English philosopher Thomas Hobbes. Many observers and opinion shapers who attempted to rationalize the ugly incident came up with conclusions with fingers pointing in different directions. The big question is, have the youths of Nigeria given up on the power of constructive dialogue? Has civility and respect for law and order eluded some citizens? And if citizens are demanding good governance from their leaders, have they also fulfilled their part of the social contract of being law-abiding? With the dust still settling and many more counting their losses, the NSAS protest has no doubt left many with more questions than answers. The one burning question still begging for an answer is, was it worth it? You be the judge.
Joining us now is Barrister Aliyu Yusuf Shehu, who is a youth leader and canvasser with the All Progressive Congress. We've not seen for a while. Yes. What are your experiences like? And looking at all this, how can we begin to, get society back on an even keel, socio-economically, and in terms of, our relationship, youths and the general society, and the society in general, I beg your pardon.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Basically, the protest has come and gone, and we're left with a lot of casualties and a lot of destructions. And gradually, things are beginning to pick up. Economic activities are beginning to pick up, and with the setting up of the judicial panel of inquiry, a lot of issues are being taken there to be x-rayed and looked upon. So basically, for me, I think it's a gradual process. It has set us back. The whole looting spray and vandalism has taken us back in what we call governance. So for me, I think it is something that will take a lot of time for us to come out of it.
As a youth leader, are you still advocating a round table with youth groups, and then the youth groups themselves going on to sensitize, their peers in terms of, the tendencies, and if there are complaints, perhaps looking for better, places or better ways of taking this across because of the toll on the economy that has been battered this year because of a pandemic that is in killing mode?
Yes. I don't think it should have been killed off. If you ask me, the negotiations should go on, because in the first place, the protest was founded, and it was done in good spirit, not until it was taken over by hoodlums. So I think they should, we the youth should take other steps like dialogue, meeting government, coming on round table to discuss these issues. Far above the NSAS, there are other issues of governance and what have you, participation of youth's participation in politics, and the rest. All these are things that the youth should come to the round table. At least we have spoken and we've been heard loud and clear. So at this point, what is important is for us to consolidate. And some of us during these protests, we came out and we made it very clear that it is okay to protest, but if it is done in an orderly manner, nobody knows how it was going to end. And we came out, we spoke to various interest groups that we should all, after bringing up forward our demands to government, we should all sit back and give government time so that they can meet up our demands. And that is what has brought us to this level at this moment.
All right, let's quickly take this before we go. The Eastern Nigeria People's Assembly has acknowledged what it describes as prompt response by government to the NSAS demands, which indicates a willingness to address the issues raised.
Although it is constitutional for citizens to demand certain rights from government through peaceful protest, this group under the banner of the Eastern Nigeria People's Assembly believe that all peace-loving citizens should understand that some of the matters of concern raised by the NSAS protesters have constitutional significance, which cannot allow a fiat executive order to take effect. This, they say, implies that time is essential for addressing some of the issues.
Discipline is very important. Discipline doesn't just mean punish a man. Self-discipline is also there, which suggests restraint against what is against the rule of law.
Having witnessed the ugly incidents of NSAS protest and the accompanying fallouts, the Assembly notes that it is the responsibility of all to rebuild the nation through conscience search, psyche reconstruction, and a re-engineering of values.
All right, Alicia is still right here with us. Moving forward, what do you want to see? We have seen movement galvanize. Now, what are the low-hanging fruits of this? We have seen youth groups being able to organize themselves. Perhaps politically, they could also do that.
Yes, that is what we have been advocating, that more than ever before, the youth should be involved in political process. And if you...
Not as cannon fodder for election violence.
No. But as front runners, as people who have a greater interest in the Nigerian project. So if you have a greater interest in the project, you should be naturally a front runner in it. So youth should come together, participate in election, so that you cannot change something from outside. You have to be inside to be able to make a change. So we call on different youth groups to sit down, look at and itemize how they can come into politics, either into elective positions come 2023, so that we can all meet and salvage our country for the better.
Okay, it's called, the most advanced democracy. We have President Trump and Vice President Biden going face to face, locking arms at this time. We modestly here we've started the electronic, interface in terms of monitoring our votes. Yes. But there's much to still learn from the American process.
Very true. Very true. We're watching keenly, even though, like you said, it's the most advanced democracy. But, they also make mistakes, and we wouldn't copy Hula and Silka. We would definitely take what is good for us. But I feel the whole world is watching, and we're watching to see how Americans would vote.
All right, before we go, the Northern Governors Forum has resolved to set youth and civil society committees to engage Nigerian youth with a view to addressing their pressing demands and put to rest the agitations.
One after the other, they came in. The governors, traditional rulers, principal officers of the National Assembly led by the Senate President, Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Muhammad, and Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, to discuss issues affecting the country. The most recent NSAS protest and its hijack top discussions as the governors listened to submissions by the Inspector General of Police and the Chief of Staff to the President on efforts made by the federal government to contain the incidences that trailed the protest after its hijack.
The appeal of Mr. President is that the governors of the states and the traditional rulers to support the government as it seeks to achieve the objective of Mr. President, which is to have a stable, prosperous, and secure nation.
As the custodians of our traditional and communal values, I urge our royal fathers to draw on your communal reverence and social control instrument in engendering a moral revival and in instilling a sense of patriotism in our youth.
Should come up with mechanisms to engage the youth in such a manner that we're able to tackle some of the issues that they face.
Coming up with a control mechanism on social media to check spreading of fake news, setting up a youth committee to entertain their worries, including supporting the traditional rulers to talk to their subjects, were among resolutions by the leaders.
This administration realized that the next epidemic that will hit the world will be fake news. Based on that, my ministry organized a National Council of Information meeting in Jos Plateau State to address the issue of fake news and hate speech.
The meeting approved the setting up of two major engagement committees. A, Committee on Roles of Traditional Rulers. Membership, the Emir of Lafia as chairman, 2 representatives from the National Assembly, 1 representative from each of the 3 zones, 1 from Federal Executive Council.
The forum commended President Muhammadu Buhari for meeting the demands of youth and the leadership qualities shown by the National Assembly during the unfortunate incident.
the size of political update for today. Many thanks to Barrister Aliyu Yusuf Shehu for coming on the program, and Dr. Giannis, all the way from Chicago, being a part of today's program. Thank you for joining the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's best and largest, where we give you the very best of news, reviews, previews, and interviews. Bye-bye now.